Look, I think we've left it too late in the sense of we knew that climate change was a problem, in all probability, 20 years ago. 10 years ago, we were highly certain. We could have got on 10 years earlier with the technological developments and the deployments that we're now doing. But in fact, we've had 10 years of continually rising emissions. And this does mean we're running out of time. On the other hand, the good news is that over the last 10 years, we have had remarkable breakthroughs in many of the technologies which will help us solve this. The cost of solar photovoltaic electricity is down 85 or 90% in 10 or 12 years. Wind is down 60%. Batteries down 85%. Electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen are coming down. So the last 10 years has been a funny balance between running out of time but increasing confidence that we do have the technologies at low cost that can solve a very large proportion of this problem.
Let's talk about the $100 billion question, or
yeah.
perhaps it's a $300 billion
yeah.
question, or maybe a $600 billion question. It's important to have some commitments on
well, look, I think what we need is clarity about what we mean by financial flows, because I think a lot of people lock on to 100 billion and they're not quite sure what they're talking about there. Order of magnitude, the world will need a couple of trillion investment per annum to build the zero carbon economy, which is possible by 2050, by mid-century. Most of that will be provided by the private sector responding to incentives. And that figure, 2 trillion, it compares with about 25 trillion of investment every year in the economy at the moment. So it's not daunting, but there has to be policies that encourage it. Regulations, carbon pricing. At the other end of the scale, and most of that will earn a good return, people will make good return from it. That's not about charity, that's not about subsidy, that's about support. There's then within that a figure which is several hundreds of billions, which is money which has to flow from the rich developed world to bits of the emerging market, but still to get a return on investment. And this is the role of the multinational development banks and what's called blended finance of public and private together to support renewable energy investments in India or in Indonesia. But again, that's not subsidy, that is financial flow. And then within that, you get many tens of billions and maybe 100 billion, which is specific subsidies helping Indonesia or India exit existing coal plants before end of useful life. Now that you're not going to get a good return on, you're going to have to pay for that to happen, and you're going to have to help those countries with the transitions. So I think this debate about finance, people fail to realize that they move between these different figures. Is it 100 billion, a trillion? Not being clear that, you know, there are different figures that relate to different elements of the challenge.
What you're saying is that we are all in it together. Temperatures are tipping, timetables are slipping. So what would be your call to arms?
I think climate change is definitely happening. We see that in the change in the climate this year, the extraordinary floods we've seen in China, India, Germany, and wildfires in America. We are at dangerous point of leaving it too late to respond, but we have the technologies to fix this. So all countries in the world should be combining in a commitment to build a new, clean, zero carbon energy system, which by mid-century will enable us to support rising prosperity for the emerging markets of the world, but also preserve the climate for future generations. And if we don't do that, frankly, we will be the pathetic generation that just failed.